Hey, what's up guys, Chris Connor here and welcome to a brand new Create tutorial. And this one is super exciting and awesome because it's the first episode of the Inferno VFX Academy series. And we start things off with a very awesome visual effect that is based in an extremely iconic scene from Final Fantasy VII, and it's basically where Sephiroth is standing within flames and he basically turned to the dark side. But I thought that scene has always stuck in my mind, and I was super excited to try to recreate it within After Effects and with actual real life footage, and I think it turned out really great. Now, let's take a look at the clip. Pretty awesome. Now, again, I think it turned out really great based on the concept that it was based on, and I'm super excited to bring you guys the tutorial. Now, before we get started, let's get some things out of the way. I obviously had to use some assets to compose within After Effects to pull off this effect. Now, these assets, as you can tell, are real. It's real fire recorded with an actual camera, and that's why it looks personally so great, because fire is that tricky thing that even though you can CG it within a computer, having the real thing is just so much better. Now, how do I got these assets? These assets came from ActionVFX, which is basically some amazing guys making some amazing visual elements for us, and they have the best of the best fire elements on their website. Now, this was not sponsored by them, but they did provide the assets to make this tutorial happen. So I will have the link in the description, and I highly urge you guys to check them out because they're pretty awesome, and they have each element as a separate product, separate from the entire pack, let's say, so you guys can keep the budget down but still create some awesome stuff. Also, we do use some Creatrix visual assets from the Creatrix store, and that's basically a couple cinematic particles from the particles pack, as well as the Inferno SFX sound pack. It's basically an awesome collection of burning sounds, fire sounds, pyro movements, and everything you need when you are dealing with fire visuals to immerse your audience even more to the imagery, because sound is truly everything when it comes to selling off an effect, because we can see it, but if we don't hear it, it's not real. With that said, let's fire up After Effects and let's get started. Okay guys, so here we are within After Effects, and as you can see, I already have the entire project fired up. Now, why are you... I'm pretty sure you guys are asking me, Chris, mate, why did you do that? So, I'm gonna tell you why. I want to try something new, a new way of bringing tutorials to you guys and teaching you my techniques and how to pull off the same effects, because once I finish a project, it might have taken me 1 day, 5 days, a week, a month, depends on the project. It's insanely hard to reverse engineer the project and recreate it while recording at the same time, and having work that might have taken me 4 days done within a certain time limit without breaking that limit. So basically, I will have to recreate the entire thing within a certain amount of time, and I just don't think that it has the same visual fidelity in terms of settings and everything as the original. So this is my idea. Instead of starting from the beginning and trying to recreate the same thing from scratch, I thought it would be awesome to start from the end and take it all the way back to the beginning from even what the camera recorded, so you guys can learn and see my entire process, my compositions, my actual settings that were used to produce that said video. Let me know guys what you think in the description, but let's get started. So the first thing that I want to do is show you guys what's included in the folder. So I'm gonna fire this up, and as you can see, I have things pretty simple. So it starts off with what I recorded myself basically. So let's take a look with this one, and let's make it small. So this one, as you can see, is a green screen, and you cannot do this kind of effects without a green screen because you cannot separate the foreground and the background efficiently and visually without a green screen. So that's why we use one of those tools. Now, as you can tell, I am trying my best to look cool. Yeah, so let's see. So as you can see, it's pretty clean. Now the green screen does have some wrinkles and stuff, but it's nothing that we can do. But the most important thing is that you can see that I've tilted the camera over to 90 degrees because my green screen is big, but it's not as big as some studios. So if I have the camera set normally, it will not be able to capture my entire body from the feet to without clipping the hair and stuff. So that's why I tilted it over, and I try to keep my movements minimum so I do not cross the borders of the frame. So as you can see, it's cool stuff, and it's a classic scene that we just saw with some other stuff. Now, that's the first thing. Now, what I did is I also had some SFX sounds from the Creatrix store, the Inferno SFX sound effects pack, and I also have 2 of the Cinematic Particles from the Cinematic Particles pack. And the important thing, yes, that's what I want to show you guys, is that I only used one asset from ActionVFX because I wanted to keep things controlled in terms of like, hey guys, this is the tutorial and I used 20 assets that you guys probably do not have. So I don't want to be that guy, so I tried to create this using what I actually needed to have and not what I would like the entire piece to have. So I only used one asset, and it's called Big Fire -0109. If you guys go to their store, I'm pretty sure you guys gonna find it and you're gonna have a blast. They have awesome things, like I said. Now, so this is what I have. This I'm gonna show you within After Effects because it's basically a Photoshop file. So let me minimize this and let's see what we got. So I have my final composition, and from my final composition goes to my visuals, goes to my live clip, which is basically me without the green because we have the separation of a foreground and a background, and then I have my green screen. And many of you guys had requested this to show you how I get the backgrounds or what the first thing that the camera sees looks like. So that's why we have this. So let's get started and see what we got. So this is what the Canon 70D captured. But now if you pay attention, if I go to composition settings, you can see that it's a 4K composition because if you go and check my layer, I basically did a rotation, and if we see transform and rotation, you can see it's tilted 90 degrees to the right in order to get it vertically and how it would actually look like. Because as you remember, it looks like this. So I made it like this, and because I want to utilize the entire resolution, I made a 4K comp so we can dive in and have all the quality that I need to work with basically. So here's how I do everything. And guys, I do mean this, everything. You're gonna have an in-depth look on how I'm pulling the visuals off. So I'm gonna go to effects, and here's what you guys need to know. When we use DSLRs, they're awesome cameras, but they're not really made for cinema. Let's be honest, right? So because the 70D and almost every camera out there that's a DSLR, it records video with 8-bit color information. And what that means is very technical, and it's gonna take even more time to explain to me, but that means that it's not good because the information of color is very limited, and it's bad because After Effects needs a ton of information to give you the best result, right? Now, with the release of the GH5, which I'm very excited for, it's gonna record in 10-bit color, which is gonna be amazing. But let's focus on today's clip. So this is from the 70D and it's recorded in 8 bits. So what I did is, if I zoom in here and I'm gonna close the denoiser effect, you can see those fine details of noise, and that's bad because it makes the image basically extremely noisy, and it's not good when you're trying to pull a key from a green screen. So if I turn this on and off, you can see where that's not. We still retain the quality of the image because we exposed with the right settings, but we are able to remove those freaking things. So at least After Effects has a more unified color input to work with. So I will zoom out here, and basically I achieved this by having the Denoiser 2 plugin and pulling a simple denoiser effect to clean this up. And what I did next, if you guys remember the advanced cinematic color grading tutorial, I also applied my sharpness technique, which is pretty simple, but just to give the silhouette from the green screen a bit more sharpness and have the edges more refined. So if we look here, on and off. So I do this all the time. I first use the denoiser effect to get rid of some artifacts and weird noise stuff that my Canon 70D has, and then I include sharpness in the image to make it look more refined, HD, and basically cool. So that is my green screen comp. So what I did, I selected both, I hit right click and pre-compose, and I named it green screen. Actually, yes, that is true. So here's what I have as a second composition. Now that I have a clean comp or footage to work with, I'm ready to remove or pull a key from the green screen basically and have a separation of a background and a foreground, right? So here's what I did. I'm gonna isolate the first thing, and I'm gonna show you what this composition, which is called live clip, does. So I have my green screen, and as you can see, I was able to remove the green color pretty effectively and keep most detail. So here's how it's done. So I have the first layer of the green screen, then I have a second one, which is basically the hair. And again, because the camera could not retain enough information for After Effects to be able to show every fine hair that the actor may have, I have a second clip which basically tries to bring some of that info back in the image. And yet, as you can see, I just pull a mask and feather it out to merge it with the layer below. And then I have a third one to bring back the sword details that were lost because of the key. So if I pull this on, you can see the before and after. So that's after and this before. And as you can see, there's a clear separation of the sword from my leg when it goes to the green screen. So with that thing, we pull this on, and this is really how you can save, let's say, the hassle of the DSLRs with the green screen by making small adjustments and duplicating layers to pull some detail back in the image. So with that said, I'm gonna remove this, and actually let's start with the simple one. I'm gonna select this one and I'm gonna show you guys how I pulled the key. So I know it looks a bit crazy, but don't worry, because we're gonna go through it step by step. So I'm gonna remove everything, and this is the exact same thing that you saw on the green screen file, which is basically the footage. Now I put a pretty cool, I mean, technically it's not cool, but I like to call things cool because reasons. So I have a mask, and this is a pretty basic thing. Basically, when you have a green screen, you just want to keep the parts that you want in frame, and you want to get rid of everything else so you can help the programs identify the green and the key and make everything better. So I started off with the curves adjustment. As you can see, I did this because I wanted to increase the dynamic range of the image. So before and after. The second part was to put a hue and saturation adjustment to bring up the greens a bit more. Before, after, and before. And then I'm ready to pull a key. So for this one, you guys can use the After Effects plugin. Actually, it's not a plugin because it comes with After Effects, but it's basically called Effect King and Keylight 1.2 to have a green screen. But I'm gonna use the Primate Keyer, which is basically a bit more advanced, and it's a plugin, but it's doing a great job, and I've been using for so long that there's really no reason to go back for me. But you guys can pull the same effect if you have done the correct things in terms of like how to record an image with a green screen and stuff. And I know I'm giving you guys a ton of information, but that's just to help you guys get the best. Now obviously this is not a green screen tutorial, that's gonna come up later, but if you guys, there are a ton of tutorials that I'm pretty sure can get you guys started with the green screen if you're not familiar with it. So let me pull this on, and as you can see, we did a pretty good job with removing the greens. Now it's not perfect, like I said, because DSLR quality, but we have to do what we have to do. So I'm pretty happy with how this is, and just a quick reference. You select with this one, you select the green color, you clean with this one, every small thing that's left, and then you simply refine the foreground to tell After Effects, hey mate, I want this section, even though it's green, I kind of want it in. And After Effects says, cool, I'm gonna do that. Yes. Can you imagine if After Effects could talk like Cortana from Windows or Siri or Google? That would be fun. Anyways, so now that I have my key, I'm gonna do my final adjustment in terms of exposure as well as color. So as you can see, I tweaked my curves, and what I did is I tweaked my RGB, pull those down, I tweaked the blues and the reds to get a more warm color, basically, because I know that I'm going to put fire behind me and in front of me. So since those fire emits warm colors, I want to make myself look go to the warm colors as well. Then I had a small tint adjustment, and the reason why I go so fast through the settings is that it really depends on how you shot your scene, right? Like you might not need these adjustments because you might need other adjustments, but I'm just trying to explain you why I have those little things that when you add them all up, they really merge into something really visually good, basically. So, and then after I've done that, I have another effect that's called exposure, and I used the same technique as the lightsaber, the advanced lightsaber tutorial from the Star Wars VFX Academy series, because I wanted to give myself a flicker, because since fire, it's a dynamic moving thing, the light that emits is dynamic as well, so it's a flickering effect. Now if you guys wanted to pull this effect truly realistically, let's say, you would have to have a light that's dimmable really quickly. So you would need to have a light that flickers really fast so it can give your actor the effect of a fire. Now I didn't have that, so I tried to, let's say, save it with the exposure. Now it's not the best, but it's also not the worst. So I have the exposure and I held Alt click on the exposure thing. Now I removed this, of course, but let me hit Control Z and let me open this up just to show you guys what it does. Go to my exposure, go to the master, and I simply have a wiggle expression, which is wiggle parentheses 5,0.2 to give a very fast but very small flickering to myself or the actor. Now, since we apply those effects only on the subject, those effects are not getting applied to anything. Now we do not have anything before me, basically, but if you have something like a background, if you do an adjustment layer, these adjustment layers will affect everything. So that's why we put those things within the clip itself, the layer basically. So it's the same for the entire other one. So I'm just gonna put this off, and then I just have a simple luminance in the sword just to make it pop a bit more, and then a simple hue adjustment for the entire thing, and that's it. Now I'm ready to start implementing my visual assets behind me, in front of me, and everything to really bring this to life. But as you can see, the entire work that I've done up to this point was to bring the imagery of the live footage as close to what I could to the final product that I want to see. Because like I said, I'm working with fire, so I need a warm image, etc. So I selected everything, I hit right click and I said pre-compose, and I named it live clip. So I'm gonna go to my VFX comp now, and here is where things get really crazy. So let me isolate my live clip, and I'm gonna shut out the background. Now actually that was super important, and I want to bring you guys the attention to this. So if I show my transparency, you can see that there's nothing actually in the comp. It's just the live footage that I color graded, removed the green screen and everything, and nothing else. So what I did then is I tried to create a digital environment basically. So let's see how I did this. As you can see here, I have a layer that's called floor. So let's open this up to see what it does. You can't tell much, but if I shut the transparency off, isn't that cool? So off and on. So that was very simple. If I go to the floor comp, as you can see, I duplicated where I was stepping from the first clip right here. So if I go to the beginning, let's see, you can see that I have a clear cutout of my base. And what I did is I took this one, brought it into Photoshop or After Effects. You can do it in, they're basically the same thing. And I duplicated just to create the illusion of steps and that I'm standing up to something and I'm not just, you know, floating in the dark, which would not look as cool. So this is what I basically did, and then I pre-composed it, named it floor, and now we have it on my VFX comp, so it looks like I'm standing somewhere, see? So basically I'm trying to create a fake environment. So let's see what comes up next. Now, if I open up my transparency again, you can see that you can't really see the floor because the transparency is like super small. You can barely see anything. Now, since this is a dark scene, I do not mind because I have my black solid, and I'm gonna open this up and you can see where it does. So now basically, if I toggle between transparency and not, nothing happens because now there's an actual background. That background is behind the actor because now we have a separation of foreground and a background. So in the place of the green screen, we have our black solid. It makes everything look pretty cool. Now, I did not do a perfect black. As you can see, it's kind of like super dark gray because I wanted to have enough light so when I do the color grade within the visuals, it's not gonna crash everything. So this is where we are. Just to recap, my live footage has been edited and we removed the green to have separation of background, which now is basically darkness, foreground, and then actually we should call the actor myself. I don't know, should I refer to myself as myself or just have actor? It's confusing, guys. So anyways, so we have a background, we have a middle ground, which is basically the actor, and then we have a foreground, which is where the camera stands, hypothetically, let's say. So here's what I did. I separated the fire elements to a background and a foreground. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm gonna fire up the backfire, which basically stands for background. And if I fire this up to open the composition, we can see that it's basically the same clip, duplicated, changed the timing, and maybe let's see if I hit transform and reversed it horizontally, and then I changed the position, so I put it like more forwards or backwards or more to the right, to the left, so it doesn't look like it's the same clip. And those are small tricks that you can do to like make the audience and their eyes not see the same thing, because it's amazing what we guys can pick up if something is the same and it's just a loop, you know? So here's what I did. So I have my 3 assets and they fill up the frame pretty well. So I thought, job done. So here's what I did next. I have an adjustment layer, which is, of course, you know, it's go layer, new, adjustment layer. And I named it Fire Alpha. Now, here's the thing. ActionVFX Fire elements are amazing because they have an alpha. And if I toggle this, you can actually now see the asset and you can see that it's transparent. You do not need to put it on screen mode or add mode in order to compose it within your shot. And because of this, if I go back, I can control the elements alpha and what that looks like. So I have my adjustment layer. I'm going to bring it on. And as you can see, I went to the alpha channel. And if I play with this, you can see what it does to the elements. So it plays with their transparency, basically. It makes them be fuller. I don't know how to explain this. Like if I toggle this, you can probably see it. See, that was the beginning, that was the after. And as you can see, we'll have way more asset, let's say. And this is a cool way to manipulate the elements based on your scene, whether it's outside or inside, in a dark environment or a super bright one. So now that I have my fire set and I'm happy with my transparency, I can go back to the VFX and you can see how they are applied. And because I put them behind my live clip, this is how it looks like. Now, I did some extra steps to ensure that my actor merges well with the background. So here's what I did. I have a couple of effects, and the first one is called light wrap. So if you go to your After Effects and you go to effects and presets and type in light wrap, you're gonna see it there. So let's see what it does. If I open this on, you can see that it adds this awesome, almost like glow thing on the outside of the subject, and it can identify this because it's a green screen. And as you can see from the alpha, let's see, this is what it has to work with. So it finds the edges and it wraps them with whatever you tell it. So if I fire this up again, you can see that I set the operation comp on background, and then as a background layer I selected the backfire because it's behind the actor. So what it does, it wraps the actor with the background, which I think is pretty awesome, and it pulls a very cool effect. Now, this does not always work with everything, but in the situation that your actor has fire behind him, I think it works pretty well. Then I had some curves and tint. Again, just try to really refine the way the image blends with the visuals that I implement in the composition. So with that done, it was time to bring on the forward fire. And as you can see, I have here front fire. And I will put this on and I'm gonna open it. And as you can see, it's the exact same thing again. I have my adjustment layer, which basically controls the alpha of the elements. And I have my elements duplicated and changed orientation and stuff just to really find a cool place for them to fit in within the scene. With that done, I was ready to implement even more effects. So I brought in the Somatic Particles from the Creator Store. And if I pull this on, you can see them here, and they truly add a lot to the scene, because in the original video that was where I announced the Inferno VFX Academy series, I did not have the particles, and I just felt when I watched it again after a while, there was something missing, and it was particles. And so with the introduction of the particles, I was happier with how the entire thing ended up looking. So pretty happy, and as you can see, I have my particles. If I isolate one, you can see they're basically particles, and what I have is a couple of adjustments, like, because the originals are just raw files, so then I have some color vibrance and then some colorization to just make them look like they come from Fire, basically. And it's a truly awesome pack because it distinguishes between fire elements, embers, magic particles that were used on the Sorcerer's Sorrow video tutorial coming up, and just a ton of awesome stuff that I'm sure you guys are gonna enjoy. So have a look. Oops, I just showed you the final effect. So here, let's wrap this up. So what I have is my background fire, my middle foreground, middle ground, that is basically the actor, and then I have the foreground fire and the embers that just go on top of everything. But as you can see, it looks so flat, but that's not a bad thing, because you can manipulate it and just take it wherever you want in terms of like exposure and how the light works and how everything blends in with color grade to really refine the imagery that you want to produce. So let's see the final steps. So I'm gonna go to the glow light adjustment layer, and basically again I just created a new adjustment layer and I basically applied glow effects in it. So let me fire this up and see the difference. Whoa, right? Like it just brings everything together so nicely, and it makes it look really like the fire is really fearsome and really alive as an image. So let's see how I did this. So I went to hue and saturation, and I just made the fire elements in the entire composition a bit more to the red hue, because it was a bit yellowish, right? Back and forth. And this is very important, guys. Like, you always need to experiment. Our eyes get very tired, and sometimes we do not see that an image in terms of color is not quite accurate, let's say. So by trying small things like hue and saturation, like curves adjustment, and little things, small adjustments, it really goes a long way towards refining the colors of the image. So hue and saturation, took it back a bit with like a -5 to the master adjustment to just make it a bit more reddish, and then I applied it a glow effect. Now if I open this up, you can see it's glow, really easy threshold, glow radius. If I bring this down, you can see that it just squishes the radius of the glow, but I think where it was pretty good, and it was 500. So glow intensity, again, this all depends on your scene and what adjustments you need to make. And then I just have another levels adjustment just to really bring the fire highlights to where I want them to be. So if I open this up, you can see what this does. I'm pretty happy with how it looks, because fire is supposed to have clipped highlights at some point. So with that done, it came the final step, which is optional, but I do think again that it adds. And the point of the tutorials is to show you guys what you can achieve with the tools that are available to us as visual artists. And if you do not have 1 or 2 or 3, that does not mean that you cannot try to pull off an effect. Now, it's not gonna look as good as if you have those tools, but you're gonna get experience, and you're gonna learn to control the tools that the programs provide you, and you will gain so much experience by working on those things that is gonna be extremely beneficial for you guys. So I used a plugin from Video Copilot called Hit Distortion. Now, if you do not have this, there is a way to pull off the same effect. It just takes a lot of time and a couple of compositions, but there are tutorials on YouTube on how to pull this off, and the effect that they usually use is called Turbulent Displace. But let's take a look at the Heat Distortion plugin because it makes an awesome job quite quickly, and I use it a lot because it's truly awesome, basically. So I will put this on. So what it does, as you can see, if I zoom in here. Now, please remember, like, the composition sizes are like 4K, and my PC is recording at the same time, so that's why it's tough for me to press the preview button, for example. But we can still see what's happening. So on and off. So off, as you can see, it looks good, but there's a clear separation of the background and the foreground. And since there's so much fire in the scene, there needs to be heat distortion. And this is what this plugin is awesome. So I have the settings on smoke, distortion amount very low, 3, heat amount again very low, speed, wind speed, and all that stuff. Like, if you copy this exact parameters, you're gonna get the same effect essentially. And I do think that these settings work well for general stuff, but you should always play around and see what each of those things does. Now, I forgot a very important thing, and thank God that we have the original clip composition within After Effects to check that out. So let me remove the transparency and actually open the backfire as well. So as you can see, I have backfire, and I have something here called RSMB Pro. Now, what is that? It's real motion blur, and it's another plugin, but After Effects, it has the same effect. It's just a bit slower, but you can pull off the same effect within After Effects, and I think it's called something pixel blur something. But anyway, the important thing is what those effects do. So if I close this off, you can see that the fire is extremely clear for the speed that it's moving. So what the motion blur does is it basically calculates the frame before and the frame after, and it puts the motion blur that the image would have if you would see it with your eyes, basically. So I think it's an essential effect, especially because sometimes we have to pump the shutter speed up to get the right exposure, but with these things, the Real Motion Blur Pro and the After Effects effect, the name escapes me, you can bring back that motion blur and make the image look more realistic. So this is the last thing that I did to the fire to really make it not look as if it doesn't have any motion blur, because it's moving so fast, right? So that's it, guys. This is basically the entire concept and the entire effect and how I pulled this off. So if I go to the final project and I will isolate my VFX clip, I brought the composition back down to the 1080p version, and you can see the height is 799 because it's basically where the black bars will be if you render it out, because I do not put black bars on top of actual clips. I changed the actual resolution of the final product, and I explained this in detail in my color grading tutorial. So, but let's see what I have. I have a small adjustment, just a vignette to make things look more focused, let's say, to the center. And then I have a noise adjustment, which is basically puts in this very refined noise pattern, which is something that, as we saw, happens with the when you actually record something with any camera. But the cool thing is that because you put this noise pattern on top of everything, it helps sell the fact that everything happens at the same time and it's not just layers built on top of each other, which is that's what it is, but we don't want the audience to think that while they watch our movies, right? So everything is merged very nicely and neatly, and it looks pretty good. And the final thing is, of course, sound effects to bring all of this work to life. Now, like I said at the beginning, this took a lot of time to create, like testing, shooting, compositing, finding the right technique, the right settings, and all that stuff. Now, what I want you guys to take from this is the technique and the composition and how I think about things and how I build things in order to create the effect that I had envisioned or was inspired by something that I saw. In this case, the Final Fantasy scene. Now, when you shoot something, do not go to this tutorial and say, I'm gonna put my tint level to 15. That's not gonna work. I want you to understand why I put a tint. So let's see. Because I put the curves adjustment, you can see that the edges became way saturated. So with the tint effect, I removed that saturation and I moved it down so everything looks better visually. And some might come along and say, I didn't like your color grading, mate. And that's fine. The thing is, did your client liked the color grading? Did you like the color grading? Because everyone's eyes are different and opinions vary, and that's completely normal. But at the end of the day, producing something that has high quality is essential to me. And I'm just trying to show you guys how you can achieve the same thing. Okay guys, just to wrap things up, this was a new way of trying to engage a very complicated tutorial, but show to you guys without spending 5 hours or 7 hours in an extreme tutorial series or something for just one visual effect. So by starting things off with just the bare bones, which is basically what the camera is, and how I try to apply effects on the footage and make it clean, make it accessible for the program to analyze it and have the effects that do not just make everything look worse, and how we remove the green screen and how we can use elements to really bring something that we envisioned to life. Again, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I would personally just put it on the background, see it, and if you want to try to tackle the effect, I will see it once, try to do my thing. If I get stuck, let's see what that guy did. Let's see how he did that step, and go from there. I hope you guys learned something, and I'm very excited to see you on the next one. Until then, stay awesome and creative.